Hey guys, welcome to the Wedding Pros podcast. We're going to be breaking down a film today, a film we did, Huxley Film, Jared and I, and of course, Rich Ferry, who's on the podcast with us today. We shot it on New Year's Eve in Boston, and it was like the first film that really went with that Huxley Film kind of mentality. We did a bunch of stuff differently. So we're going to be breaking down that film and checking it out and just kind of giving our impressions and maybe kind of recollecting, thinking about it. This is part two of a two-part episode where we talked about the film. So if you haven't heard the first episode, we kind of talk about pre-production, what went into creating this film. Today we're going to talk about the editing and some of the shots specifically and kind of our impressions and all that. So without further ado, we're going to watch the film.
Celebrate family itself, and let's do it by having a big frickin' party. Big frickin' party that they can hear all the way up in heaven.
It's very striking from both of them that they have pursued their dreams and they continue to pursue. But in living those dreams, they came to learn that two is better than one. It is important that we follow our dreams, but it is nothing compared to the great, great wisdom of God, that we do not have to be alone. So this is why Jesus said, that this is what heaven is going to be like. This is why we should enjoy this day as deeply and as fully as we can. And at the same time, we should remember that it is nothing compared to what John and Kara will now experience. Something more deep, more lasting, more joyous than having your dreams fulfilled.
Hey, it's me if you got a minute. It's nothing urgent. I'm going to be on a conference call from 1 till probably 2, and then on the road coming down to see you. But I would like to address one thing that's on my mind relative to the conversation we had this morning. I want to make it clear to you, I will never, ever again in my life be disappointed in you in any way, shape, or form because of who you are. The only time I'm ever going to be disappointed is if you're not living your dream within your means and your abilities. And that is something you've always done your entire life. So to think otherwise is crazy. And I want to just share with you a little bit more of that when you have an opportunity. So I'll talk to you later.
The last time I was with all of you was to eulogize my father. And so it's fitting that this time we're here to talk about another man whose life is now over. John Francis Andreoli.
Hey guys, how you doing today? Same day, but how you doing still?
Great.
Still really good. Still really great.
My wife told me I had to change my sweater because I can't be in the same two-parter wearing the same shirt. So
I'm just a little bit cold, so I put on my cardigan.
yeah,
I'm
so I
feeling
did
a little,
it
I'm
just
feeling
so
a
my
little ganged
wife
up
would
on here.
be happy. I'm not sure she's ever watches our show, so maybe she would never know the difference. But I just want to be a good husband. You know what I mean?
My wife told me I should get
Know
a
what you
haircut
mean,
between the episodes, but
Yeah.
Rona.
Okay, so we're going to go through this film. And guys, if there's anything you want me to pause on, let me know. We don't want to step all over each other, but we're going to go through this film. And we're going to just kind of break it into a couple of different sections and then talk about some of the editing, some of the shooting, some of the things that we did. If you didn't hear the first episode, basically this was a film that we shot all black magic with cinema lenses. And a lot of our editing was decided ahead of time. So we were like, hey, let's do something where we start with the crazy party aftermath and kind of show the cleanup and then use the broom sounds as like a cadence. And then we're going to kind of sync it together with this countdown that we knew was going to happen because it's New Year's Eve and this confetti and all this. And we had this whole concept, right, ahead of time. And of course, then we had a lot of stuff that we didn't know ahead of time. So if you want to know all about that, go check out the first episode of this film breakdown where we kind of talk about the pre-production because we get pretty into the nitty-gritty of how we made this film and the production elements. But what we're going to do today is just we're going to go through the film bit by bit and kind of break it down. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Ready.
Okay, guys, so what we're going to do is we're going to watch in my opinion, this film has a very, very clear beginning, which is this big crazy party sequence with this aftermath beginning. So we're gonna watch the first minute, and then we're gonna kind of go back and talk about some of the shots and kind of some of how we got it and break it down for you. I'm gonna stop us there.
It's so well sound designed. I mean, there's just so much. Not just from a sound, but visually, there's little treats for you and your eyes and your ears the entire time, which I think is so fun. Like, the shots are whatever they are, but it's not as camera movement dependent anymore. Now all of a sudden, there's like, whenever there's a shot that feels a little static, you're like spinning and zooming. There's like all this great tilt shifting going on a lot of the shots, and but more than anything, yeah, like the audio is like just so tantalizing because you have clearly practical audio, and so our ears start to think like, hey, it must be that broom, and that must be the sound of the countdown and all that kind of stuff. But the combination of like post audio and like all the reinforced stuff plus all the practical audio that we capture on the day of, I think they really help each other out a lot and make it feel very, very, very powerful. And it just complements like the great visuals. It's a good way to get you into a video like this too, to like get your eyes and your ears calibrated to some maybe more heavy-handed editing that's going to happen, and more heavy-handed sound design that's going to happen. It like calibrates you right off the bat to sort of expect it.
So, and I wanted to go back here too. Sorry, go ahead.
You've seen this film so far, right?
Yeah.
Previously seen the whole film? Okay, cool. I wasn't sure if this was like the first impressions.
No,
with Rich
unfortunately.
We did do a little bit of like film vignetting for the first.
Yep. Well, you mean the 16 millimeter like letterbox frame thing?
Yeah, and it's like it's not authentic at all. We were like, I'm not trying to be authentic. I just want it to look interesting.
Yep.
And like every one of these shots, we're using post zoom at the beginning just because we wanted a motif. And the other thing that we did, if you watch it and you can see it quick, is all the zooms are clockwise.
Yes.
Or, I mean, counterclockwise. I mean, because we're like time is reversing.
Oh,
maybe that's too high concept, and
that's
no one will
way too high
care.
concept for me.
But we wanted to go with that, and so then we're like, oh, okay. I was thinking this is going to be when we go back into the party. So we have this crank sound right here. I want to stop there.
I don't think that
Go back.
I don't think that anyone will appreciate how much work went into that dun, 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 of the different faces in the church, and how much time went into like setting up a tripod and filming each detail. And of course, the coolest thing that I saw you guys do, I don't get any credit for that, is that frame right there, where you guys spun the Practilite so that a static shot of the statue had some dynamics. I think that's like talk about like creativity through a restriction. Like we rolled in with these like heavy handheld shoulder rig cameras, and so we couldn't do your typical long sweeping dynamic gimbal shots on every camera. And so instead, locking off the shots and using light movement as a tool is like certainly not like the most innovative thing, but is never employed on a wedding, because we have our own wedding tools and our wedding way of doing things, and just see it in the edit. It's like it's so much better than what will end up looking like a photo with a Ken Burns effect if there wasn't movement. Instead, it has this like great, it's like dynamic and electric, and it kind of feels like, oh, how do they do that in editing? Because you'd never think that someone would like throw a tripod with a long lens and do a light move. So and a lot of the edits in there are because of the non-traditional, and I don't mean that's non-traditional in the world of weddings and the way we shoot weddings, non-traditional shooting for weddings, and then it allowed for really non-traditional editing choices. And again,
look how noisy that image is too, Jared.
Doesn't look noisy
I
to
know,
me.
it's a good thing it's up for a tenth of a second.
Right.
For now.
Because that church was.
But it's just such a great way.
I like this shot because it's like that classic, like, this shot is like the most orange thing in the world. How can I make it look cool? And it's just like, put a black and white filter on it. You look better.
Right.
Yeah,
But,
well,
yeah.
and this was all.
I think we saw this the night before. We were like, what's some interesting things we can do in here? Like, what's different than like your classic, church? Because, yeah, that one shot of them walking down the aisle, you just see it's like kind of just a normal church, right? It's like, it's a very pretty church, but you see how yellow it is.
Yeah, right here.
And we're like, how can we make this look somewhat interesting despite just being like a normal kind of Catholic church? And it was like, well, what kind of interesting things? And every time I go into a church, I'm always like looking around. I'm like, these statues and these like adorned kind of like, I don't know, like mosaics on the wall and paintings. It's like all this stuff is like really interesting to me. But at the end of the day, it's like every time I try to shoot it, it just looks like kind of crappy and like it's not interesting. It doesn't even really play into the day at all. So why use it? But I think the way that we did that, where it's like literally all of those shots, it's probably like maybe a second worth of time, maybe half a second worth of time. And I think it works. I think it's fun. So
I see this shot, Rich, right here.
Yeah.
I remember editing it and I was like, Rich blew it. Like you missed focus so bad, and then you ran and you almost ran into Jared. So it was this really chaotic moment, right? And I was like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? I gotta show the moment of them walking down the aisle. How do I get this? And it actually, the way I was gonna use it, this shot wouldn't have worked. But the way that I ended up using it with this bass drop, see how it is? It's all like out of focus right there.
Yeah.
It's awesome now because of that bass drop. The shot worked so much better, and it inspired me. The chaotic way that you were moving and the situation inspired me to go, oh, I can put this into the intro, and I can use this important moment that wasn't shot in an ideal way in a traditional sense, and really like the chaos actually makes it work more.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it was cool. It made me like really happy when I was like, I need a shot like this. And then I was like, oh, there was that shot that Rich almost nailed but didn't. By the way, I don't blame you at all. You're holding a handheld rig, manually focusing after an hour of a
That
ceremony.
was fatigue was real at that point in the day.
Yes, I remember. Anyway, let's keep going. Only 2 shots, Jared, from the rehearsal night there. And
yeah, we spent about 3 or 4 hours there at the rehearsal night, and those are the last shots that I got at the end of the night. I was like, this looks cool. And I think I went into, it looks like Gotham. It looks awesome. We're in the top floor of a downtown Boston building, and there was fog coming in. I was like, I don't know how or when or whatever we can incorporate this, if at all. But I think it was pretty sweet.
Look how awesome that frame is, the in-between frames. I love all the mirroring effects that
when
we
you
used
first sent
throughout.
me this video, this is actually how I watched it. Frame by frame. Because I was so interested. I was like, it's so interesting, like all the spinning. I can feel it, all the spinning, and I could feel all the mosaicing and all like the mirroring that was happening. It was becoming a bit of a through line. And so I started actually going frame by frame. I've actually seen all of these like intermediate frames, and they're fascinating.
Yep. I mean, it's a combo of like, this is practical motion plus dolly zooming.
Yep.
So it's like both.
Let's celebrate family itself. And let's do it by having a big frickin' party. Big frickin' party that they can hear all the way up in heaven.
So let's go back. I want to talk about a couple things here. First, let's talk about the voiceover. When I was going through the footage, trying to find a voiceover that worked. One of the things that was like looming over the day was the passing of Kara's father, and also the brothers. Right, the brothers were like, we even did a first look with the brothers. They were like, kind of stand in for Dad in a lot of ways. And so when he had this, it was very heartfelt, funny, beautiful, and he said, hey, let's celebrate family itself. And let's do it by having a big friggin' party. A big friggin' party that you can hear all the way up in heaven. So there's a lot of references there that they would get. First of all, a big friggin' party was her father's description of what she wanted. Because, I mean, I don't know the whole situation of how involved he was before the wedding and all that. But at one point they said, what do you want the wedding to be like? And he had said, I want it to be a big friggin' party. So that was his description. So we were able to take her dad's description of the wedding, work it into a quote, and then, of course, put it as a title and all that. And so that was not only her brother speaking, but using her father's words to describe the wedding day. In the previous episode, we were talking a little bit about a portrait session, a family photo, like a video photo booth. And this is where we did it. So I'll show you guys this. Remember shooting this, Rich?
I do. I remember it well.
Yeah, it was like, yeah. I remember you saying something to me afterwards, like, "Wow." Basically, like you're just like, "All right, next."
We were not having a good time. This was difficult.
I remember you guys both coming back and be like, "We are not the right fit for that kind of."
I was one of those moments
shoot.
where I thought I was quite clear, like the ways in which I'm a video person and not a photographer. Like that really drove it home for me. Like I was like, I have lots of experience in a lot of things. One thing I have no experience in is like coaching regular people to do regular things, like a family group photo, which, wedding photographers have a huge toolkit to pull from and lots of experience about like working the crowd. I have zero tools.
Yeah.
And it was on full display there.
So I can't see Rich just telling people like that girl, like, if you could like dab in the middle of it, that would be great. I can just see you dabbing.
Yeah.
I mean, look at how much motion and how many little shots are in here.
These detail shots are so satisfying to look at.
Yep.
Yeah, I like them too. And the thing I noticed, Rich, I'm not sure how you felt when you were shooting the details, was like, I'm not used to shooting handheld. I'm usually monopod and like gimbal. I kind of lean that direction. Like I don't do the whole strap handheld thing most of the time. So shooting details was a challenge for me. And I was like, I had done some moves and like some practicing before we had actually shot, but actually day of, I was like, this is so shaky. So Jay, I'm glad that you used some of these detail shots that maybe didn't have that same, and a lot of time we're going to have image stabilization, right? On a lot of these shots. We didn't have any of them. And I think they have good movement, but it kind of masks it. Maybe some of the unflattering movement that might be in some of the shots, and you're still able to use them because they just have, being cut so quickly. But you still get the idea of like, okay, this is, she has a Chanel brooch.
Right.
The rings are awesome, and, it looks awesome, man. I love it.
We wanted the film to feel handheld too, so it wasn't like we wanted it to totally not have the handheld feel. But you can already get the vibe early on, even with these quick cuts. This isn't going to be a gimbal film.
Right.
Yeah.
It's going to be handheld. It's going to have a different look. If you are a color nerd or Resolve person and you're aware of how the qualifiers work, almost this entire sequence right here, like look at the green here. Now, it's a little greener than maybe we wanted. It's greener than I would normally make it if it was a longer shot, but we wanted it to feel poppy and stylized. These plants were yellow, basically, from the light. So we had to qualify in that green right there. And we also had to, I'm going to go back and talk about that the little mini speeder. That green right there was qualified in. That right there, we took the yellow out. That right there. That green back there was actually yellow.
That room was so yellow. That shot back there, Jay, that shot there was yellow too.
Well, yeah,
I was
going to show you. So I didn't qualify this image, right? So you see the back of that guy's head? I just kind of was like, it's on so quick, I'm not going to do it. There's also like, did you notice the overlay I did, Rich?
Where?
Right there. It's the glitter. It's just like very quick. But then this shot, so this shot was also not, this was like right here, brought the qualifier in. So all on the right side of this frame right there. It's all desaturated on the back of that
Yeah.
older gentleman's head right there.
Keep going though, Jay, because it turns from that blue to the green. That's where we had most of the.
No, I got rid of it.
Turns to green yellow there.
Yeah, it
That's
was
where
even
starts
worse.
to turn into green yellow. It was way worse. It was awful.
Yep.
And turning it into that white just makes it like so much more bearable.
Yep.
And that was a big problem that we didn't really talk about much was the lighting on site was a challenge. We should talk about that once we get to the reception for sure.
I'm having PTSD.
Anything else you guys gonna want to talk about with that opening sequence, guys?
The only thing that I would probably say, Jay, is, and I can see maybe some people having a critique about it, and I'd be interested to hear kind of your thoughts on it, would be, do you feel like it's almost too crazy? Do you feel like the cuts are almost too fast paced that somebody could be distracted or annoyed by it in general?
My opinion is no, because I did it, but I'm wondering what Rich's opinion is.
Yeah, definitely. My critique is never about the pace of the edit. I think that people, especially through like most other outside of the wedding world, like in sports and like a lot of ads and a lot of web ads, like fast cuts are very trendy right now, and people have demonstrated like an appetite for fast cuts and also like an aptitude to like consume at a really, really fast rate. So like when you blast through stuff, I think people are, if they're not able to like articulate necessarily what they saw, they get the spirit of it. Like maybe no one would ever be able to tell you back that they saw details of the church, but they feel that they're in the church because they're seeing like church-like imagery before they hit the shot of the couple walking down the aisle. Speed is not it. I think the only critique that I would have moving forward would be regarding like just where is the line. I guess it's not even a critique. It's a question about where is the line for music epicness. And I know, Jay, you and I talked a lot about music back and forth. You kind of brought me in on some of that decision making, and I don't sympathize with the choice. Music choices are hard, but so I think the question would be, when you're thinking about the family and the family heirloom, like where will the edits don't feel like they're the ones that might not age well. It's the question was like, in 10 or 15 years, will people still have the appetite for like epic, like kind of like hype battle cry kind of music? I think that's going to be the one that's going to stay. Right now, it feels like perfectly appropriate. It feels like really aligned with like what I'm seeing in some of the high-end wedding work. And it feels like no question, like very 2020, right in the pocket for that kind of video. So my question is going to be about like in the future, will that age the same way or will it feel timeless? I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
So I was talking to Henry Martins about this a while ago, and I've talked to several editors, and obviously there's varying opinions, but he said something that was interesting, which is like, he thinks it doesn't need to be timeless. And in his opinion, a film should represent a place in time. Like when you go back to watch your parents' old video, you want it to feel like an old video, and so like, I kind of embraced that a little, which was like, what I want to be, I don't want it to be dated in that it's a gimmick, right? And that it's in poor taste. And I don't know where that's an interesting line, and we can talk about that. But I think there's some things where like, that was in poor taste, or that was amateurish, right? It was trendy, and an amateur deployed something trendy.
I know what you're saying. I think Henry's comment is the one that's the most important to hold on to, which is that weddings are. Oh, actually, we've talked about this as a group too, which is like, even if we didn't use. Here, let me argue against myself and argue for you, which is like, even if we didn't use like a cinematic epic opener and we used more like Musicbed-esque music, that music in and of itself is going to be the ultimate marker of the times. Like the popular music of the love songs, this type of EDM flared party music, that's the sign of the times, and that will date the video anyway. So there's no reason to pretend like the video and the people in it and the clothing that they're wearing and the music that's being used isn't going to already be dated. So
yeah, I do think lyric music too. Lyric music more than anything is probably the thing that's going to date the song.
100%.
So like you said, Rich, like something from Musicbed with, EDM, whatever, is gonna be the thing that kind of puts it into the time. But I agree with Henry too. It's like people want, and I think kind of commenting about pacing. I do think it's fast. I think it's very 2020. But the thing I liked about kind of that fast pace is it allows you to, like, the next song that comes in is so slow and delicate and dainty that just like the juxtaposition of like going from that high to that low.
Right.
And Jay, throughout the whole process, and Rich, we talked about peaks and valleys, right?
Right.
Like that's mainly what we want to try to produce.
We want that to be one of our like signature takes.
Right.
Is like the films are super dynamic and like I talk about it a lot, but it's like I don't want to jump on your line, Jared, but just producing a level of tension in your film. How do you produce tension and like create story drama without doing something a little over the top? We'll watch the next section. I've heard some people be critical of the pacing of the next section and the stillness of it, and I received the critique, but I will politely disagree. And I'll tell you this next part of the film, the getting ready things, is my favorite part. It is the part that I just start feeling something. Like, I'm all for a cool edit, but like it gets me. Like the music, I love, like, the track is so good. The way he recorded it, one of the, like, a couple of the keys are out of tune slightly. So it's like almost like a mini horror element implemented into this film that, like, it produces the feeling of tension without, it's almost like, I love the idea of like suspending relief. Like, that's good. That's suspense. I wanted to create suspense, and I feel like this creates like a suspense that's like you get when you watch like a really moving film, right? You get this feeling of suspense, but it's not fear. It's like you just haven't had the relief of like something beautiful happening. So anyway, let's watch it. Let's watch the getting ready stuff. I love, Rich, how you really focused on the macro parts of the relationship. Like, that shot to me is so good, Rich. The way her hands are touching, that's obviously Kara's mom, and the way that they're interacting, it says more to me about their relationship and about the day than the shot where you could see their faces.
Right.
I don't know. So my concept for this whole beginning was no shots with faces.
Oh. There's something really interesting you had said earlier about the idea of like wanting to make sure that the film doesn't feel so universally relatable that you like lose the identity of the couple. And the opening feels like we're making one of those videos. The opening feels like this is not about the couple. This is about like a flex of the team that shot the video, of like how, fun we can make a video. And then there's that pause, and you start to get a sense of like, okay, I don't really feel like I'm prepared to be moved emotionally. And then this sort of changes pace, sort of says, okay, now we're going to actually do the opposite and go like very, very intimate. And there's something about this sequence that's really interesting to me. Like, there's a piece of it that feels beautiful and soft in like a really interesting way. I love that particular frame right there the most. I don't know why. It looks
It's
like
so good.
It looks like a
even the way
painting.
it's soft on her like left hand.
Oh, it looks like a painting. It looks so
It's so beautiful.
painterly.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of it is like it feels like when you're first watching it as an outsider, it feels like, okay, I'm seeing an inventory. Like, this is them saying, here, I've checked off the list of all the details that we noticed. But like really quickly, you see the hands touching, and like you see him flip his collar, and it sort of says like, boy, there's a lot of like personality here. There's a lot of like intimacy, and I think that I immediately like lose that feeling of like this is like a something that's made to be art, and now I've started immediately feeling like very intimate. Like, actually, I'm being let in on a pretty intimate space, and I'm being like let in on a pretty intimate moment. And just before I visually start to say, uh-oh, now my pendulum is swinging too far, like I don't know them, I don't care about this, all of a sudden we start to get the double exposed, collapsing kaleidoscope effect of details. And now we're back to sort of saying like, gosh, where is this going? And I think that's really an early sign to like teach the viewer to not really expect something. It's like this video is going to take you on an adventure. You're going to get things that feel very abstract, and then you're going to get things that feel so real that you're like, I know this. You're a wedding video. I've seen you before. And then it's going to change again. And I just think it's like really kudos to you for that. I think it's really well balanced, and that narrative arc that you were hoping to send people through of a bunch of different emotions, not sure how to feel, I think was really hit right on the head by this sequence.
Yeah, I think the best word to describe this whole segment is delicate. We kept on saying like, oh, it feels so delicate. It feels so dainty. And like when I saw her, I kept on being like, I feel like we filmed a video for like ballerinas, right? And with the music too, it's just like Jay picked the perfect song for that, because it just feels like she's about to go on stage, and it's in the subtlety. Jay, I hadn't really thought about that. Like you really don't see their faces. You just see those kind of small, really, it's super subtle. All these moments are just like, it's mad subtle, like all those little moments. And those are moments that you can't cheat. Like you can't cheat the subtlety of like mom touching her, forearm, and her just so daintily like touching her little Chanel brooch on her dress. Like
you can. We did. Fake.
What was that?
That's coached. That's coached behavior. I hate to tell you that.
It was perfect.
Yeah, sometimes we just like need to ask people to spend a little bit more time. It's not like you don't coach people about the moments, but you say like, stay in it, guys. Like, poke at it, pick at it, really look. One of the things I coach people to do when they're like putting on, especially like women and jewelry, is this sort of like, or like accent pieces on their dress, or like that kind of stuff. It's like I sort of coach them to spend some time with it, kind of like put your hands on it, keep your hands on it, and like really start to notice the textures that maybe you've never even noticed before, and like really kind of feel this thing that you're wearing, and like all the ways in which it has like character. And that's sort of the coaching that's going on to make those moments like that. Yeah. It's not just adjust them or futz with them, but actually like, pick at your dress in a way that allows you to really like understand all the layers of your dress and stuff like that, without sounding so pretentious that it like becomes comical. But it does read really well on video.
Let's keep going. If you noticed, a couple times in there, I did work in some ambient audio too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Early on, too. On the very opening clips, there's something. What is that? Right when the sequence begins, I hear some stuff in the background.
So I didn't include these shots with their friends and family, and so my concept was, I'll just include their voices. So like their friends, some of the people who didn't really make the film in a prominent way, which I still think about, but I don't know. I think something has to go sometimes, and I was like, I want to at least make sure that they're in the film, and that they can be heard, and that they were a part of the day, and I appreciate that. So I wanted to include it a little.
I always feel like when you don't include ambient audio, it a lot of times just feels like two-dimensional, right? And you want it to feel three-dimensional, right? And like feel like you're actually in the room. And we talked about it in that opening clip. Like the sound effects is what kind of leads your heart rate the right direction. And like, oh, I feel this film. It's not just I'm seeing it, I'm listening to it, but I like feel the film. So those sound effects coming in, I think that ambient audio, the more I watch our films for Stop Go Love even, I'm like, it needs to feel more. It needs to feel that ambience in the room of like, I'm here, I'm with them, I'm in the room with them. I'm not just watching it on a screen. And I think that ambient audio does the trick. I think it's perfect.
So we get the pacing up a little. The song has an ebb and flow. So I wanted the cuts to kind of go with the piano speeding up and slowing down. There it is. Hero shot, Jared. Let's look
Jay,
at look at this though. Look at the collar.
Yeah, there's the blue. There it is. Yeah, I hadn't really noticed what you said, Jay, as far as like you didn't really show their faces until that first shot of Kara, and again, I think it goes back to peaks and valleys again, right? Where it's like you're waiting, you're kind of seeing these things surrounding, but even at that point where you're watching like her play with her brooch and all these things, you're not really seeing their faces. So the audience is almost like anticipating, like, I want to see them. I want to see them. I want to see them. And you're kind of like making them wait, building it. And then boom, it's like the first shot you see her, the first shot you see, her sitting by the window. Like it will kind of allow people to explore the heroes, right? At that point and get to know them.
And that's how I think about it, is like, these are the characters of this movie. And the thing about it that's interesting, because it's a real wedding day, and I don't know if you remember this, Rich, she was stressed.
Very.
Yeah.
It was a strange choice. I think you probably made it due to lack of availability, but like she was stressed. We were really late because of the lights hitting the building, and also the photographer had a very different style. So there's a shot in there that she goes from smiling authentically to like clearly being told something, and she turns her head and straightens out her face. And it's just to me, it's a bummer that happened, because you can feel that. And it's like, stop smiling. Look at that. Such an authentic thing. And then like something tells her like, and I think, I can't remember.
You know why I did it?
Because
I wanted the symmetry of the two shots.
These two shots live together so beautifully. Like it looks like they're looking at each other across the room. When in the edit, it feels like they're absolutely like flirting with each other in the same space. It feels so good. But it's clear, you can't hide the stress. Like you can feel that she was feeling a lot of pressure. And there's somebody took a behind the scenes photo of that hotel room that morning. At that point, Dom and Jared had arrived and joined me. There was like a lot of cameras and a lot of rigging and a lot of all the coordinators were in the room. It was a lot going on, and like that would be very difficult for anyone to sort of stay authentically in the moment.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think it was just interesting because I had to duck around all these shots of her looking really stressed.
Very stressed, yeah.
But what was interesting, I created my own world. I didn't listen to the audio.
Good. Smart. I do the
of
same
anything
thing.
that was said. So what I did was I said, okay, this is the story. She's smiling because someone said something, and then she's thinking about John.
Right.
And then she's thinking about John, and then John's thinking about her. And then he's like, I'm super cool. And then he looks at the camera. That's the story. Best shot, the whole film. So I love holding shots way longer than are comfortable. So this was in reverse, right, Rich?
Right. Yeah.
So I would have not done this right, but Rich goes, that one's supposed to be in reverse. You told me that.
Yeah, you shot it. I remember, Rich, you shot it and you were like, it'll be in reverse. It'll be in reverse. I remember you saying it multiple times, actually.
That's really interesting.
You were like, I intend it being in reverse. And I was like, okay. So this was in reverse. But I wanted it to go do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, because I'm imagining cuts, right? The thing moving is a cut, right? And then her transitioning to eyes open, eyes closed is a cut in my head. So it's like, it goes do-do-do-do-do-do-do, and then the piano rests and her eyes rest. Right.
Yeah.
So in my mind, it was very quickly cut. But it was one shot with a lot of moments.
Yep.
Okay, let's keep going. We're at the wedding. Jared wanted some pictures of people talking and hanging out, so we included that.
I think it's very striking for both of them that they have pursued their dreams and they continue to pursue. But in living those dreams, they came to learn that two is better than one. It is important that we follow our dreams, but it is nothing compared to the great, great wisdom of God, that we do not have to be alone. So this is why Jesus said that this is what heaven is going to be like. This is why we should enjoy this day as deeply and as fully as we can.
I gotta say, man, I thought it was so interesting how quickly we just kind of like, and here is a Catholic wedding.
Done.
I thought it was so interesting.
Over.
You know, I've been meaning to tell you this, but I never talked to you about it. So I'll talk to you about it now, which is like the most provocative choice in the entire wedding video, in my opinion. The most provocative thing that you did is not the edits or the music. Is that the fact that the only B-roll you used of the entire wedding ceremony is communion.
It's a cool shot.
I know. It's just a preposterous choice. And it was like, you know what? I was watching it and I was like, huh. And then later I was like, I don't need anything else. That's enough. I don't need to see people staring. Like, I actually don't ever find joy in filming that. I don't know that anyone feels comfortable being filmed. And I don't think any couple's ever been like, oh, good, you got my aunt going. It's a provocative choice that in this video of this length, that the church, which owned 1 hour of a 10-hour day, owns a much shorter percentage of the edit, and it doesn't feel lacking. I don't want any more.
Yeah.
I'm good. I get it.
That's something that I learned from Henry, actually, and Alex, and all these filmmakers that, you know, I kind of admire. And I'm like, man, like, the ceremony is only like 15 seconds long in their video, and like, hey, you know, it doesn't feel like exactly what you said. Doesn't feel lacking. Feels like I feel the church. I feel like I'm inside of there. Feel like I understand what the, you know, person speaking was talking about, and it just, I don't know. I thought it felt really great.
The decision for the audio, Jared, what do you feel about like the story that the priest tells?
I thought it was good, and I was going to mention it too, that you didn't include, like, typically maybe on one of our Stop Go Love films, we might include the priest speaking as well. You didn't include the visual of him speaking. It was just audio. I thought it was good, and he was actually very good, and he was really funny.
Mm-hmm. And he was important to them. They told us that.
Yep. And I thought it was interesting that you chose kind of the more serious part about what he was saying. And I feel like it encapsulates kind of who they are, and the spirit of kind of their relationship in general. Probably the best out of all the quotes that you used, but you didn't use any of the jokes, because I think you had a lot of jokes with the reception, and, you know, as we'll see, and the brothers kind of gave off this good kind of fun vibe. So I thought it was appropriate that you use kind of the more serious, kind of intimate, kind of speaking for the more serious.
She's an actor. He's a baseball player. So I wanted it to be something.
Follow your dreams.
Yeah, where it was like, your dreams are important, but your marriage is more important. I feel like that's a message that a couple needs to hear. And I think it's something that will be meaningful to them for a long time. And
that, what he says there plays into the next little part as well, which we'll hear, the voicemail from Dad as well.
Shot coming up.
Really pivotal part.
Yeah. Shot coming up, Rich. Yeah, there's a voicemail coming up. But shot coming up, Rich, that Jared shot on the gimbal, that's super flawed and super noisy, and I love it. This next shot of the...
I love this shot.
The cocktail.
Love this shot.
It's so cool.
It's so good.
And at the same time, we should remember that it is
this one.
to what
So beautiful. Looks like a painting.
you now experience.
And this one too.
Something more deep, more lasting, more joyous than having your dreams fulfilled.
And then watch his mouth. He says that twice in the film.
How many times in the video do we have him saying, I love you so much?
Twice. The next shot, I'm going to tell you about it beforehand, and then we can talk. Maybe talk. We don't even necessarily need to talk. Her dad passed away, obviously, which we've said a couple times. It was really sad. But also, there's this positivity to it that was going throughout the day, you know? I think they had wanted him to be a part of the day. And so they're doing a first look with the brothers instead of the dad. And and she did her first dance with all her brothers, which she kind of didn't want to do. I remember she was like, is it cheesy? But it was important to mom or something. But they did it, and they had a lot of fun. And I remember going like, how do I elevate this stuff and make it really, really heartfelt? Because I viewed it as meaningful. Like for me, it was a beautiful thing that we did. And I know for her, some of those parts of the days were a little stressful. And I wanted her to feel really good about it when she watched it and really think of her dad in a positive way. So I reached out to Kristen and I was like, is there any way I can get footage or some audio of her dad? And she came through in the clutch, man. I believe, got it from her brother. Kara had no idea that we got this audio and no idea that we included it in the film. But the voicemail you're going to hear is her or her dad talking. I don't know if they had an argument or what it was, but it kind of dovetails into the speech from the priest about dreams and her just being a person who pursues her dreams but also like, hey, we'll talk later. Like, I love that. I loved ending on a, hey, I'll see you later, honey. Like, because that's how we want to feel about people in our lives that pass, right? Is like, we're going to see you later. It's okay. And I wanted her to feel like he was there and that he was like saying like, I'm so proud of you for getting married. So that's what this is. And it's also the beginning of our stylized Quasar sequence.
Hey, it's me if you got a minute. It's nothing urgent. I'm going to be on a conference call from 1 till probably 2, and then on the road coming down to see you. But I would like to address one thing that's on my mind relative to the conversation we had this morning. I want to make it clear to you, I will never, ever again in my life be disappointed in you in any way, shape, or form because of who you are. The only time I'm ever going to be disappointed is if you're not living your dream within your means and your abilities. And that is something you've always done your entire life. So to think otherwise is crazy. And I want to just share with you a little bit
Look
more.
at that ring.
Rich, that shot's fantastic, man. I love that shot you got, man.
Yeah, it might be the best shot, actually. The other shot I said was the best, but this one might be the best. It's such a good shot. Sorry, interrupted her dad. Keep going.
And that is something you've always done your entire life. So to think otherwise is crazy. And I want to just share with you a little bit more of that when you have an opportunity. So I'll talk to you later.
That was shot in the room was all mirrors, so we shot that in the bevel of a mirror. So that's not a post-production trip. That's a practical effect.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff going on here. Rich?
So it's so interesting.
So we got like kaleidoscope stuff going. We got like one random shot that looks like a TV. We have the church being used as this is the church ceiling.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, I wanted it to just be like, my concept was they're dreaming about their day.
We only had, again, I think we mentioned it before, we only had like 10, 15 minutes with them. And the thing I loved about using the quasars is we were able to get essentially two different looks. We just blasted them with white. We were like, do some traditional kind of portrait session. So we switched it around super fast, got them in, got them out. But it allowed us to transition and essentially get two, well, I would still qualify it as like two sessions. One is like your traditional, like, here's some, traditional white light doing traditional things. And then here's funky light. And we were able to do some really weird, different things that I've never seen before, and have fun with it. So,
By the way, Rich, how great does this light wrap?
Oh, it's so nice.
Look at that.
That's
on
the
our
beauty
hands.
of quasars. We're also using a 4-foot tube and plus a fill. So the way that the source is so large compared to them versus other types of practical sources that you have.
Yep.
What I thought was really interesting about this way that we shot this was the fact that we lit it without them in the room. We lit this. They stepped into the light. We lit, following. There's probably like a Roger Deakins kind of person. There's a saying out there. There's like light the room, and then have the subject step into it. We really took that to heart here, and we created zones of light and color palettes, and I think 3 of us actually grabbed cameras at different focal lengths, and with one of us on a gimbal, and we sort of said like, I believe you guys said like, hey, somebody step up and coach, and the others will just shoot. And so that was the interesting thing here is like, not only did we operate within, I believe, 5 to 10 minutes, we also, like, only one person really spoke with the couple, and it was like, I'm going to take the lead, and everybody else is shooting from the wings, wide, tight, medium, and so we were getting 3 times the footage out of the same moment, and then we would change the lights up. So it was really very efficient, an insanely crazy way to do a wedding portrait session compared to what you normally get, golden hour on the beach. But it was really inspiring, and the cool thing about this moment was, it was the first time on a wedding day that I've ever experienced something like the couple walked into the room and were sort of like this.
Yeah, they were like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
What?
They were wide-eyed and they were like, oh, I want to go play in that light. I don't know what you guys are on about, but like this is really interesting looking. And we surprised them in a good way, and they were like, I felt like a huge sense of trust wash over them, and they were like, let's go stand in that light.
Yep.
Whatever these guys are on about, I'm sure it's cool because it looks cool to my eyes. And that was a really nice feeling.
The last time I was with all of you was to eulogize my father. And so it's fitting that this time we're here to talk about another man whose life is now over. John Francis Andreoli.
I wrote Jay a text when I first saw this video, and I was like, I've been thinking about that quote since New Year's Eve.
So
When he said that, I like lost my breath. I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. I was like, there is literally one person in the entire world allowed to make that joke. Literally, the other brothers can't even make that joke. Just him. He's the only person in the unique position to make like a your dad passed away joke at a wedding.
I remember I almost used it, and then I'm like, I need to go see what her face did before I ever used it. And I cut to her face, and she was laughing hysterically. So when she watched it, she goes, that was a good joke.
It's a great joke. And the other thing that you're saying is like by cutting to the 2 of them and you see their reactions, particularly Groom going like, oh my, and like her laughing, it gives you permission. It's like, okay, brother made the joke.
Yeah.
Bride laughs at it. Like, we're good. This is funny. This is a very funny joke. And it's like, it also gives you permission. Like, it's a very somber film, and you're not sure if the whole day is shrouded in darkness and that kind of thing. This moment, not only did you place it with them when the music finally lets go, it's the release, but it says, hey, this is okay.
Yeah.
And we're allowed to have fun in the morning. And I think that there's really this incredible, like, transformation that happens in the video, which says it is okay to do both things, mourning and partying at the same time. And I think it was just like the perfect cut.
So all these overlays are that's just confetti. Just shots of the floor that we were like in the carpet. Like stuff like that. Like that's just the carpet right there. That background.
So wild.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the carpet. I wanted to like bring it in like even if we're going to do an effect, we want it to be part of the day, you know?
Right.
Great flair, Rich. You notice we changed color there, Rich? And brought back the little frame.
Oh yeah.
It's such an authentic moment. It just gets me.
I thought your choice here was interesting, Jay. But I think it works. I think it works cool. Looks awesome.
I just wanted it to end. So I brought the song back in. And I wanted it to just kind of end in a moment that was like, I don't know, that brought, I mean, let people know this was a wedding and these people are in love. And I don't know. Like,
I think it, honestly, I think that does it so well. And I think that there couldn't be a better way to end the video than that really authentic moment where he says, "I love you so much." And the camera like is pretty honest. That camera was just a handheld camera looking up at the sky, looking for some, and I think it's just like a perfect way to say it. Like any sense of pretentiousness fades away in the video. And it's sort of like, this is a very authentic way to document it. And I think it's really, I think honestly, it was like the best, that moment. I can remember being in the pit of that moment filming it, and it felt like very much like that this was important. You know, I think that's like the cool feeling. Every once in a while you get that at weddings when you're like, I'm standing in the middle of something important. And it felt important. It felt like really intimate. And it was cool to see that clip. And I agree with you, Jared. It was an interesting choice. I would have never done it myself. And I was like, oh, that's nice. That feels good. After all the deluge that we just received of editing and like employing like the prowess of like an editor and a colorist, it's like nice to see just something super raw and in a way that doesn't feel anything more than just like a great moment documented.
Yeah. And it was what it was, but it was beautiful. So, hey guys, thank you so much. I really like my overall impressions of that film. I mean, I guess we can close out by saying, what would you have done differently if you could go back?
Probably, I think just have a better sense of the equipment that we had. But I mean, that just comes from experience.
What about you, Rich, real quick?
I think color would be the only difference for me. I think the way we shot it was like knowing all the variables that were working against us and all the pre-production that we did and the nature of the day that we got in the middle of the winter. Like, I think we did a great job. I think the difference would be really deciding a look on the front end and loading that LUT into all of our monitors and knowing how we're going to grade it and being able to be even more confident about our color and exposure choices. That would be the only thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, I just go back.
That's probably a separate video we should talk about.
Some people
is working with those monitors, Rich. That was definitely a challenge, and nailing the exposure, putting the right ISO in, because now we know like that's an important feature to know beforehand and all be on the same page about. And that's probably a separate Blackmagic video, Jay, that we could do sometime in the future. That would be interesting to people.
So
but
for me,
we'll see.
For me, the whole thing, I'm not a type of person that has a ton of like regrets. I'm happy with how it came out. And obviously I wish we would have nailed every focus spot and nailed our ISO and nailed all those things. But I'm also just like, I like the learning. It felt good. It felt like real learning. Right. So it's exciting to me. And I had a lot of fun making it with you guys. And I had a lot of fun doing this episode. So I'm super grateful for both of you. Super grateful for Kara and John for letting us make the film. And super grateful for Kristen and all the other people that helped us in the day of. So if you liked that episode, guys, and you thought it was interesting, let us know some other films you want us to break down or anything like that. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that alert bell because, man, we love to see that you're checking our content out. And definitely be sure to go check out Rich on Instagram and check out his wedding brand, Rangy Films. If we ever get back to shooting weddings again, that would be great. We can have them again. So thank you so much, guys. That was a lot of fun.